Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Banquet Hall podcast. As always, my name is Kyler Nathan. I am your host today. I'm joined by a really dope creative, a really dope person I'm really excited to bring to y'all today. Monét, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm flowing. I've been in flowing. That's been my thing lately.
Ebbing and flowing. I love it. New listeners, make sure y'all follow the podcast at Banquet Hall Pod on all socials. And for those of y'all watching on video, I do have the first iteration of the Banquet Hall t-shirt. We got the long sleeves, the sweatshirts, we got a crop top. So go ahead, head over to thefourthkyler.com, cop y'all a tee today. But really excited for this conversation. Monét is another member of the Black Expression team, so very, very excited to help tell their story. So I want to get started as usual with the icebreaker question, and I'm actually going to borrow one that I did from a prior episode with Little Blue, actually. And so, Monét, I didn't prepare you for this question, so very excited to see what your answer is. What is your aura? What color is your aura today?
Ooh. Well, the first colors that came into my head was like a lime green, like a yellow lime green, and then it fades into like a dark green.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, that's my aura today.
Lime green. You said a lime green that's yellow and it fade into a what?
Like it's like starts as like a yellow and then it fades into like I would say like a lime green and then it goes into like just like a green.
Okay. Are either of those your favorite colors by chance?
No.
What is your favorite color?
Lavender.
Lavender? Okay. Well, I definitely mess with the aura. I'm trying to think what vibes mine is giving today. I feel like there's black and gold in it, but like kind of like just interacting with each other. Like I don't know what the force is that's making it interact, but I'm feeling black and gold today. Maybe it's because of the shirt I got on, but I don't know. Black and gold was what came up first. So yeah, don't know what any of that means, but I always think it's cool just to see what people feel like their aura is. Little Blue, she said that her aura is almost always yellow. And it's funny that you say the lime green with the yellow too, because I have your website pulled up on the side over here, and the picture on your about section is hella green with some yellow. So I
Yeah.
think that's just part of who you are.
I mean, I don't when I like those colors, I think of, like heart chakra. I think of money. I think of yellow makes me think of like confidence and like joy. Um, yeah, I feel like I all those things I can connect to.
Hey, we are all here for the joy and definitely the money too. Like if there's anything we gonna manifest out of this podcast, we need some more money for the both of us. We all gotta eat. But Monét, the first formal question I usually get started with the podcast with, let our listeners know where are you from and how did that shape who you have become and are in the process of becoming?
Yeah, so I am from right here, San Diego, California, born and raised. And I feel like that is such a great question is in regards to like how has it shaped who I am because I think oftentimes you don't really take the time to think, well, how has being from this region affected me and how has the culture affected me? But I think being from San Diego, I think it has pros and cons. And as far as like it can be its own bubble in a sense that it's very leisure. So I find myself like enjoying, not necessarily enjoying leisure activities, but it's like, it's around. Like I want to do it. So, and also by the beach. So I have this, like, I have this flowful energy about me. But at the same time, I feel like I'm from Southeast San Diego, which is a whole different world than that tourist side at the same time. So I also have that like gritty, like, hey, like if we got nothing, we're gonna make something out of nothing. At the same time, like we can't get to the beach. Okay, what are we doing right here? Like, like so. I kind of feel like I exude both of those energies, and that's how San Diego has molded me. Um, and so for a period of time, I was in the Bay Area for like 4 years. So that has molded me as well. But in regards to the latter question, which was, what was it? How is it going to? How is it like shifting me?
Who
Who
you
I'm
in the
becoming?
process of becoming? Yeah.
Yeah. So being back, um, and returning and now being a mother, I think it's allowed me to recognize like, this is this place has molded me, and it is, I deem it home, but it is a sliver of the world. So it's kind of made me more curious. Like, although I love
Mm.
San Diego has to offer, it's made me more curious to see California, actually, because I've only known really California. Like, that's the state I'm most familiar with. So it's like, even though I love what this state has to offer, whether it comes down to weather or the fact that we get the mountain, you can go to the mountains, or you can go to the desert, or you can go to the ocean. It still made me be like curious, like, okay, well, what else is there aside from city life? What is rural life like?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like being here has made me more curious to other aspects of the world as well.
What part of the Bay Area were you in for those few years?
San Francisco.
San Francisco. Okay, dope.
Yeah.
I think one of the inspirations for this podcast really are a lot of the people I got to know from San Diego, because I think I came to San Diego for undergrad and then ended up moving here once I started working full time. And I think when I first got here, like all I knew about San Diego were the stereotypes, like, oh, it's beaches, it's palm trees, there's tacos, and a bunch of white people. But once I really got to know, like, where are the more cultured parts of San Diego, where are the people that look like me from, then I got to know, like, oh, there are real people in San Diego. And I think that that's the more interesting part of San Diego. Like, yeah, the beaches is nice, the palm trees is nice, but the creatives, the people that are doing the work in San Diego, I love hearing y'all's stories, because that's not what you see on the news. At least that's historically what you haven't seen as much. And I think even when we have this notion of what the Southeast San Diego is, like, people think that just because you're from the Southeast doesn't mean that you aren't also expanding into these other realms of reality too. So I really like how you contextualize all that ebbing and flowing into who you are as a person. And I definitely think that that 4 years in San Francisco, I think you give some San Francisco energy too as an artist. So I rock with that.
Yeah, definitely have been influenced and like inspired by the Bay Area. I like sometimes I'm like I be wanting to rep it, but I'm like I'm not from there, so I don't feel like it's like want to be like Bay Area area like that's not, I gotta stick to where I'm at. But also to add to that, to add to like the stereotypical aspect is crazy, because I have more of like a flip side of the story. So like I know San Diego as like Southeast San Diego,
Mm.
predominantly black and brown, Barrio Logan, Sherman Heights, National City, Paradise Hills. Like that's the San Diego I know, that I'm more familiar with. And so of course I would visit places that are like La Jolla, across the 8 to more north areas. But it was one summer I was working at Trader Joe's, and I've only known Southeast San Diego, so I mean I've known more, but I was working at Trader Joe's, and that's when I realized, I was like, damn, like San Diego is there's a lot of white people here, and there's a lot of people here, and that's when I was like more like, oh, like this is the predominant, like what people would know of San Diego who don't live here, you know what I mean, or who just are getting surface level or just in a different reality than what I was in. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think once you get into that Trader Joe's environment, I'm sure you saw like all types of
Hey.
San Diegans. So let's go into who you are as a creative, as an artist. And I'm really excited to hear how you define yourself as an artist and creator, because as I was doing my research for this episode and I went on your website, you have on here that you are a multidimensional creative being committed to expressing emotions and thought forms in the format of music, photography, muse work, modeling, graphic design, and collage. And I was like, wow, like that says so much more than just saying that you're an artist or that you're creative. So obviously that's how you define yourself on the website, but what would you add to that in terms of who you are as a creative and as a multidimensional creative being?
I think one thing that I would add to that is also being a storyteller, and also being a documenter of life, whether that be documenting other people around me, like a family portrait, and giving them a print so that that portrait is will last, or even like even taking the time to tell a story, whether it be like my story or a brand or an organization. And at the same time, all of that derives from the intention to bring about insight, whether that be insight to like our society, and the harsh realities it comes with in on the spectrum of like the leisureness that we mentioned so forth the previous. Um, and so those are the things that I would add to that.
And when would you, and obviously there's a lot of different dimensions to who you are as an artist and as a creative. When would you pinpoint your start on this creative journey? If you have like a specific start point or where you started to be more invested in creativity?
Yeah. You know, I well, my parents put me in a creative arts school, like elementary school. So from the get-go, like from being like in a young child, I was exposed to things that let that side of the brain, that creative side, whether it be through dance, through theater. So honestly, I would say that that would be like the initial point because it was that spark in me that made me be like, oh, I like these things. I like to do things that allow me to say how I say what's going on inside of me without necessarily saying it directly, or saying it directly um, in a bold way, in a colorful, vibrant way. So I would say that that would be the pinpoint. But I guess um, as an older person, and you know, getting to realize, you know, society. Do you really want to be an artist in this society? um, that began, I would say, more so in I want to say high school and college, because I was doing graphic design. I went to school for that. And so I was like, oh, like this is actually something tangible. This is something that I can do for people who need it. Like it is a need. It's not something that it can provide me sustenance and income, and also provide me that realm of expression and like freedom to do what I'm going to do. So
Absolutely. And you mentioned going to college for graphic design. Was that in San Francisco or where did you go to college at?
So I actually went to high school for graphic design. I went to Kearney High School, School of Digital Media Design. Shout out to my DMD kids if you are listening. And that's where I got exposed to photography, not only graphic design, but photography as well, and just other forms of art that I really still enjoy and do today. So I'm really glad that that I chose to go to that school.
Absolutely. And so let's go ahead and get started with graphic design, just because I feel like graphic design is something that I'm very passionate about. I'm very interested in. I just love going and creating something, whether it's starting with a blank canvas or taking something and making these edits and changes to it. How would you define your graphic design style? Like when somebody presents you with a blank canvas and they have an idea for you, what are you hoping to accomplish with graphic design?
Right. Absolutely. I think well, I mean, the main goal of graphic design to me, it is a form of visual communication. So my main goal is making sure the message I'm trying to convey, whether that's someone's name on a logo and their the energy they want to embody, whether that's very clear, or getting down to like I'm creating a collage and it wants to hold a certain message, assuring that through the abstractness, through whether it's like vibrance, that digital collage still carries that message very clearly. So that would be probably my first more importance, is like communication through that visual and through graphic design. And then second, I would probably have to say like vibrancy. I'm very big on like color, very big on abstraction, but also at the same time, that being said, I'm very big on making sure I bring my client's vision to life if I am
Mm,
working with a client. So if the client doesn't want abstraction and they want something that's a little more warm or cool or subtle, I'll make sure that I provide it. But also still have my own flair. Like I'm gonna still spice it up with the Monét Nyree design.
Definitely gotta make sure you spice it up with your own creative touch. What about some pet peeves of graphic design? I think especially in this age where we have a bunch of AI created things and people are just trying to produce quickly, quickly, quickly. I think sometimes people lose some of the fine tuning that someone who's more trained and educated in graphic design might have. So what are some things when you're looking on social media or looking at flyers that are some of your pet peeves when it comes to graphic design?
um, I mean, it can be tedious, like especially if depending on the type of work that you're doing. But also I would say that it's a growing field because technology is growing as well. So there's always more things to learn and there's always more like things that are changing. Like I know Adobe just dropped Adobe Beta, which involves
Hmm.
AI, do like new stuff on Photoshop and Lightroom and so it's like maintaining that and keeping up with that. And then also um so I would say like I wouldn't say that that's not as much of a pet peeve as it's just like making sure you're being consistent. It could be a pet peeve, you know. It could be like frustrating, a bunch of things going on, and it's like, well, I got to learn, I got to keep going. But that's life. So
Yeah, that is life. We are constantly in this stage of growing and learning, and capitalism is yet to slow up on us. So we just have to
yeah,
keep ahead of the times. And you and I had mentioned this. We had a meeting with Black Expression Team last night, the night before recording this, and we were talking about like that fatigue that comes with like having to post or feeling the need to post something for content and getting your messaging out there. So definitely feel you on that tedious nature of it all.
yeah. And I think to speak on capitalism, like, because that's really the root. I feel like that's the root of the pet peeve. Because ultimately, like, if I could just do graphic design and all of my artwork, like not not that I do artwork for money, but it is a big part of like my means of living and survival and my family being sustained. But if I could do it without all of it, without money, and just do it because I enjoy it and explore it and have that time to like be like, how can I take graphic design and like invest my life to it to improve the world? Like, you know, in a way that's like big, like reinventing things like that. Or like all the like, can we just invest in? And I guess maybe I am, but you know, there's capitalism, which is like, oh, let me do this commission. And of course, I'm not going to do any commissions that compromise like myself, but
Right.
sometimes I gotta pick something up that's like small or not as impactful as I would like to be in the sense of my services.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons why I like having this podcast and inviting people on who are creatives, because I think when you hear creatives talk about their why and what their why might be versus what capitalism requires them to do, I think that's like a dichotomy where we would love to just be creating and not having to charge people a lot for this, but at the same time, we got bills to pay, we got things that we have to do, and we have a lifestyle we want to live. And I think that the more that we're able to share our story, and I think storytelling is going to be a big part of this podcast, but the more that we're able to share our story, the more people understand what that investment is. If I'm going onto your website and I see something costs X amount, that's not you saying that like you're trying to like get people for all their money, but this is the value of the work you're putting into your craft, the time that you've taken to become not perfect at your craft because it's an ongoing process, but the time you've taken to develop that skill as well. And I think that the more that we share our story as artists, the more that people feel good about the investment that they're putting into our art as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And also taking the title of artist seriously in a sense, like, oh, this person does this for a living. This is what puts food on their table. So I should take this service they're providing serious, you know? And
Absolutely.
I feel like that is shifting and that narrative is happening. Um, you know, I think that there's other like teachers deserve more money to just as much too, more income too, you know. So hey, yeah, going back to capitalism and colonialism.
Hey, absolutely. That's definitely at the root of a lot of this. As we were talking about graphic design, you mentioned collages within that, and I wanted to give space to talk about collages as a form of art because as I was looking at your website, I was looking through some of the collages that you have for sale and not for sale on there, and I absolutely love like this "My Grandmother Was Born in Brooklyn" piece, and I think that there's just so many stories obviously with any art that you're looking at, there's so many stories that you can get from a first-hand perspective, but also hearing the story that an artist has behind some of their art is really powerful. What draws you to collages as a form of art?
Yes, so I do collaging digitally and I do it with my hands. I mean, both of them are with my hands, but I do one digitally, paper and glue and scissors. Um, and So I feel drawn to collage, and I feel like it's because of the way that my mind works, or at least like so to me when I collage, it is similar to doing a puzzle. However, this puzzle is a puzzle that I'm literally creating as I go. And then we
Mm,
get to the final piece when I'm finished the puzzle. Like I'm literally putting the pieces, I'm creating the pieces and also putting the puzzle together. Like so it's just a whole engaging activity and experience for me. And oftentimes being able to do this with my fingers and connect it with my brain and my heart, it just all kind of flows. I like get into a flow. Like it's like a flow space. Um and so that kind of is what draws me to collaging. It's like I'm able to express and create, and it doesn't have to be from beginning to end necessarily in the sense where it's linear. It could be like, okay, let me
mm.
here with it. Let me add this. I don't know where this is about to be. We're gonna put this to the side and use it because it could be here or it could not. You know what I mean? So it's all very fluid and flexible. And again, going back to how I've been inspired by here by being in California, there I carry that fluid and flexible energy. And that's something that I'm coming to realize in many facets of my life, whether it be like as an artist, as someone a part of a team with Black expression, as a mother. Um, and so I'm trying to make space to recognize how can this fluidity be have structure too.
Mm.
So in my collaging, it's crazy because as much as there's fluidity, it all creates a structure. It all creates a wholeness to it. So it kind of
I
comes
love
full
the
circle.
way I love the way you describe that because I don't know how intently I've ever thought about collages. Like I think I've only done collages as part of like a project for a school or that it was like part of a team building exercise. But even just hearing you describe the idea of a team as a collage, and I'm thinking through like when you're making a collage, what parts of a certain image are hidden, what parts of it are contributing to the full picture, what's in front of something, what's behind something, what's a part of something else. So yeah,
Right.
you got my brain wired. I want to write a poem about
Like
collages now.
so my brain like, and it's just the more you even say that, I feel like my brain like operates like this where it's like, okay, everything is kind of everywhere, but at the same time there is a strategy to this shit. Like there's a method to the madness. Like there are pieces that are gonna have to go behind other pieces. So it's like, are you gonna lay it down and glue it? Are you gonna wait? Are you gonna leave this little piece liver not glued and stick it? Like, I don't know. I just all that I think is like a release for me, or like a, oh, I can, because I can't think like that all the time. I can't operate and function like that. It doesn't work in this society. I have to be like attentive and on my P's and Q's. So when I could collage like that, or even just have an organic conversation in a team like that, the different things we talked about, I feel like, all right, I'm in my flow.
Yeah. See, you got my brain all wired up. I'm thinking about how food is even like a collage. Like if you put it together a meal, like that's
Yeah.
a collage of different ingredients. Wow. Hey, this is why I like podcasting too, because sometimes I'm doing the podcast host thing, but I'm also like part listener too. So as I'm listening to you, I'm like, huh, like if I was listening to this podcast episode, that'll be the moment I'm like, huh, I want to go make a collage now.
I love that. I hope someone goes to make a collage right now.
So listeners, go ahead, press pause, find some magazines or go on Google Images, and get a collage going. Like, why not? Like, we have a little banquet hall collage going. I like it.
Yeah, and I want to put y'all on too, like listeners, if you want to just collage for fun, the app that I use is called Bazart. You can get it on like I have an iPhone, but it's Bazaart. It's called Bazart, and you can also collage on like Canva too and stuff. You can probably even collage on like photos because you could copy photos and just do your thing. So just putting y'all on, get creative.
Yeah, get creative. And if y'all decide to make a collage because of this episode, definitely go on IG, share it, tag the banquet hall, tag Monet in it. We're gonna get into Monet's various Instagrams a little bit later in the episode. But would love to see what our listeners come up with. So that's the banquet hall challenge of the episode. Want to see them collages. And I think that's one of the beauties of collages. It's just like you said, there's a strategy behind it. So regardless of if we understand the full picture just by looking at it, as people like start putting together, there's so much thought and intention behind those different decisions. So yeah, that's gonna be my goal for 2024 is to make more collages.
Yeah. And then even just going about your life, like how can we take this analogy and bring it here?
I feel like next time I host Black Expression, there's going to be a lot of collage talk. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and get into Monét Nyree, the photographer. So obviously, a lot of folks that go to Black Expression, they've seen you bouncing around with a child, but also with a camera throughout the event space. What drew you to photography in general? Like when you first picked up that camera, when you first got comfortable with the camera, what is your origin story with photography?
Yes. My origin story. That's a great question. So, um, like any story, there's like various chapters that lead to now. So I guess I'll start with like again going back to high school, and that's when I first was able to like really like touch a camera, explore with the camera. It started off as like, let me take pictures, let me like do fun concepts with myself, like holding flowers, and then it would be, and then getting into college is when I was like, I'm on my phone always taking pictures. And then one of my coworkers had a camera she was trying to get rid of for like $100. It was just like this Canon Power Shot. I have it right here, actually. This bad boy. This is a DSLR, like nothing special. And I bought it off her, and that's when I started taking pictures of my environment, of like events, like my mama's birthday, things like that. And sharing my work, and just like just to share it, just because I enjoyed it. And then people started to see that I was like doing a little bit of muse work behind the camera, but also taking photos as well. And so with that being said, folks reached out like, hey, can we do a photo shoot? Like, can we just do creative stuff just because? And so that's kind of how I started to build my portfolio of like portraits with people, was just getting creative and having fun. And then it became more of like, oh, I offer these services if you need portraits. Um, as a means just to get income, but also like because I enjoyed it. And so now I'm doing that freelance photography as well, but also curating events that allow photography to be more accessible to like families, creators, entrepreneurs, just community in general who need like professional headshots. Um, and so that is the story behind photography. Definitely more of a picked up a camera and just started going.
And as you were talking about who you are as an artist, you mentioned like capturing moments. And I know a lot of the process of photography, you are capturing a moment. And I want to kind of go behind the lens, pun intended, with you for a second and thinking through like when you're having a photo shoot with somebody, that engagement that we don't see before and after the photo, because whether it's getting the right shot, getting them to express a certain emotion, getting the lighting, like what do you like and what do you enjoy about that engagement as you're taking these pictures with these individuals?
I think I enjoy like building a connection with my clients in a sense that, you know, talking to them and understanding like how do they want to embody themselves and what they're trying to honor, whether that be celebration, whether that be, honoring family, whether that be just wanting to have professional photos of themselves. So I like to connect in that sense, again, bringing the client's vision to life, but also at the same time, I like to bring out the authenticity of my client, like whether that be like, hey, let's take some time to take a deep breath, or hey, like, how you doing? Like, let's not get into it right away. Let's just flow, like move into it gracefully, so that there's more of a naturalness to my sessions. And I think I really enjoy that, and I think I do it really well. Um, I like making people feel comfortable, but I also like to challenge people. And I feel like being behind a camera, being in front of a camera is challenging. But it's really cool to see someone go from being challenged to like getting comfortable and then like being like, damn, do you do this regularly? So that's really fun. That's something that I enjoy. And it's really cool to see my clients see themselves in that light as well. Especially when they go,
Mm.
hey, look at this, and they're like, what? And I'm like, that was all you.
Yeah, I think there's so much power, and I use power in like a great sense, but there's so much power being a photographer, I think, because I think especially as someone who recognizes and honors the energy that people have and the space that they carry themselves in, and just being able to check in with somebody to say like, how are you doing? Or I noticed that like you look a little tense here, like just what that can do for a photo. Because I know the first time I really started to engage with photographers who are more human centered, and they would ask me questions like, oh, like when's the last time you stretched? I'm like, dang, like I ain't stretching a minute. And all of a sudden I feel looser for the photo. So I just love human centeredness when it comes to creatives and artists because it just matters so much for the end product.
Yeah, and I'm very thankful to be able to have experience, like professional experience in front of a camera myself as a model muse, because that I have like I know how it feels to have that uncomfort, and I know that sometimes the best photos are the most you feel the most awkward, but you look the most fly, or you think that you're just being you is like not it, and it's the best photos. You know what I mean? So I'm just thankful to have that light and be able to like guide and support clients in that sense, whether it be posing or just motivating and hyping up
Mm.
people.
So listeners, if y'all tapped in with this, everybody needs a headshot at some point. I know I have a lot of listeners who are currently in college. Grad photo season is coming up. So want to pause real quick to give you because we talked about a lot that you do. So want to do a quick shameless plug corner. Where can people tap in with you? Whether they want graphic design needs, whether they want a photo shoot, how can they tap in with you?
Yes, so my home base is Monét Nyree. You can find me on Instagram. So it's at MonetNyree. If you want to find my photography page, it's monetnyree.photo. If you want to find my graphic design page, it's monetnyree.design. Yeah. So those are my Instagrams. And on there, on those pages, you can click on the link in my bio and find more about me. There's a lot to explore. I'll let y'all have a lot of fun. I'm sure we'll get a little more. But yeah, that's me plugging myself.
Absolutely. And I appreciate the consistency and branding over it too, because it's so easy, like just Monet Nairi dot photo dot design. I love good design. I love simplistic design. I love things that are consistent with branding. So that is one thing I've very much appreciated because as I was doing this deep dive, I was like, oh, Monet Nairi dot photo, Monet Nairi dot design, Monet Nairi.com. Love it. Just chef's kiss. So kudos to you for that.
Yeah, thank you. I was like it until I have like a time where I'm like, all right, it's time to bust out my alter ego. It's Monet Nyree.
I feel that for sure. One more thing that I want to make sure that we had time to discuss are your honor, your capacity journals. I think I have, pretty sure I have mine in my backpack right here. So just so
And
the listeners can see. Go ahead.
I said, hey now.
There we go. Have it right here
Yeah.
with the logo on the back. Talk to us a little bit about what went into wanting to create these capacity journals.
Yeah, so that journal originally started off as just the cover of it. It was a print. And it started off as honor your capacity. I think I came across the quote and I was like, wow, I really like connect with that deeply in a sense. Like I can do better at setting my boundaries, whether it's with myself, and like knowing how to manage my time, or whether it's like connecting with people and like being like, hey, that's not like no, or hey, that's not in my capacity right now. And I just thought it was like a really graceful way to establish boundaries and also promote like awareness of one's capacity and one's energy and what they can give and what they can take on. And so that I was like, I want to boost this message. I want to enhance it. I want people to be able to connect with it because I would like mention it and I would bring it up in the conversations and it would definitely click with folks. So I was like, all right, let's continue to build with this because it brings a good message. And so that led to the journals being created. And the journals, I'm big on our words holding power, and I'm learning that every day more and more. Like it becomes more true and more like I step into it more every day. And so I wanted to create a journal where folks can like interact with it or even just like read something and take it with them for the day. And that's where I created a journal. I like to write. I like to write like poetry and just like task lists and flow of consciousness. And so that is how the journals came about. And I was really thankful that someone in the community was able to teach me how to create the journal, like through
Mm.
like on and posted and all that stuff. Um, and yeah, so now the journal's here, and I'm just like, wow, what's next? I have my t-shirts too. I have a black one and a white one, and those are great. And so I'm hoping that I can just keep making more things and make like bundle packages and different little trinkets to remind folks like, hey, honor yourself, honor your capacity.
Say that, because even just thumbing through it as I was showing it to the camera, I came across a few affirmations in here. I'm like, yeah, like I needed to read that today. Like the page that I opened to and I just accidentally opened to it again, I have already succeeded. Like I think that's something that we all deserve to be able to internalize for ourselves a lot more often.
That part. Yeah, definitely. Um, it's important to speak life into yourself and those around you. And so I think that the journal is an ode to that.
Absolutely. And so, folks who attend Black Expression, Monet and GJ are usually set up with the journals, the shirts. So definitely tap in when y'all catch us on those Friday nights. I wanted to expand a little bit to talk more about Black Expression, though, because you've had opportunity to be a part of the behind the scenes of Black Expression, to be a part of the team. What have you gained from being part of a team of creatives and being part of the Black Expression team, the art space in San Diego? What has that done for you so far?
Well, as someone who like left home for a while and like came back and then, has kind of been here, not necessarily trying to reestablish myself, but more so trying to find a community who is like-minded and trying to build and be impactful, whether that be with with throughout San Diego or amongst ourselves as individuals, like when it comes to like accountability and things. And so it definitely brings me that sense of like I feel a part of a community. I feel like I'm contributing to something that's beyond myself, and also
Mm,
allowing something to grow and expand, and like contributing to the innovations that bring that about. And so that's been something that is very important to me, and I'm thankful that it not only provides this space of like creativity, but also this sense of like business, and management and like team building, and because all those things are like necessary for like life skills. And so I think it's always important to exercise those and like get involved in something like that.
mm, absolutely. Absolutely. And one more thing that you've mentioned in a couple of different facets as we've been having our conversation, you're also a mother. And I wanted to make sure, I think you're probably like the fifth or sixth mom to be on the podcast. And I always like asking this question: what has being a mother taught you about yourself?
Mamas unite and papas. um being a mother being a mother has taught me a lot, um because it has required a lot of like quick adapting. So it's allowed me to see like how quick are you able to adapt and how effective is your means of adaptation. And it's made me recognize things that I can improve on, and also things that I'm really good at. Um, and I think it's also shown me how much grace and compassion that I have for myself,
Mm,
um, because times can be challenging, whether it be with being a mother or, as a unit, it can be challenging. And it's like, how do I manage those times? And it's shown me how I've been able to move through those moments. Um, and so I'm really thankful. It's kind of like been like a mirror, whether it be like my partner holding me accountable or whether it be me being like, oh, like trial and error with Zula, like this is not something she is liking. Let's try this or let's do something different. Or, you know what I mean? And so when babies grow, they get into a schedule and then it shifts. as soon as you get into the flow. So, but honestly, I've been really honored and humbled and just thankful that um it's all happened, that I chose to be a mama. That, so, and that Dula chose me to be her.
Yeah, absolutely. So going into the tail end of the podcast, who are some people who inspire you and or influence you?
Yeah, this is like always been a question that has not necessarily challenged me, but has definitely something I always like ponder and think about, because I think that immediately, like, the people who are immediately around us inspire and influence us. So I mean, I want to say the first person would be my partner, because they're the person that I'm always with, or I'm always around them. And so they definitely challenge me in the best way and inspire me to be better, be a better version of myself daily, and then better top that version of myself. And so that is something I'm appreciative of. And honestly, every time I see somebody who I know, like from San Diego, who is also a creative, just doing it like organically, authentically, getting it out the mud, that's really inspiring to me, because I'm like, hey, we are like eye to eye, like we're on the same, like I feel it, and I'm like, we're all just trying to elevate and do what we love. So that's always inspiring. Whether they're, let me say, because it could be whether they're in San Diego or the Bay Area, because I got some folks in the Bay Area who are doing dope things, and I'm always like, hey, that's keep it up. um, so that would be two, and then lastly, I guess I would have to say, like, I'm inspired by, like, knowing that there are people who were here before me, like, I guess my lineage.
Mm,
And it's like, how can I contribute to enhancing my lineage? Now that I have a child, it's like I have a descendant now, so it's like, how can I enhance her life? I know that that's not a person, but I guess I'm personifying the spirit of like longevity. Um,
mm.
So if that could be something that is like, I know it's not a person, but I'm personifying it in this time. But that's something that definitely going well.
Hey, and it's funny because I have written here like people who inspire and influence you, but really I just am interested in whatever your inspirations influences are. So maybe I think just subconsciously I also personify whatever influences me or inspires me, because if I were to answer this question, I'll think like the ocean inspires me. Like there's just so much that's less tangible, or things that aren't necessarily human that are just so inspirational just in how they interact with the universe, the collage of the universe.
That part, right?
So for this next question, I like to call it the fourth place segment, and just some history behind the fourth place. So there's this notion that we as humans, and especially in these times, we're lacking a third place. And the third place is historically has been a place between your home and your place of work or schooling. So a coffee shop could be your third place, or a park could be your third place, just somewhere you go in between those two. And so for the fourth place, I'm curious, where's your Zen place, or the place, scenarios, circumstances? What environment do you feel the most peace of mind in?
Yes. So, we're not always going to be able to, like, I want to be in a space where I can find peace anywhere. Whether I be like in chaos or in the midst of like hard challenges, I still want to be able to find peace. And so I want to first say, like, well, I guess it starts within, but also outside, like literally in nature. I feel like that's
Mm,
the place to go, where it's like, all right, I need to cool off, or I need to just like think, let me go outside. Um, and then on top of that, it's like outside, but in solitude as well, like by myself.
mhm.
So like solitude plays part of that, of all of it. So I would say like within, solitude. um, and I think for me lately, I've been finding that those moments in the middle of the night, like, so we do shifts for Zula. So I have the late night shifts, like the graveyard shifts, where it's like I'm up with her. If she gets up at like between 1 a.m. till the morning, like it's me, which I'm totally like, I've been adapting very well to that, because I'm like, oh, this is like my me time. because like Papa's sleeping, Zula's sleeping, I'm up pumping, or I'm up like up doing whatever for the baby. Let me do other stuff that for myself so I could be ready for the next day. And so that's been really sweet. But also like just those moments in general, like if I'm in the midst of a whole crowd and too many people around, they're like, let me take a breath. Let me find that solitude
Mm.
if I'm around a bunch of people too. So
Yeah, there's just something so powerful about being able to take that internal pause for yourself when you're in a crowd of people. Like, I definitely resonate with that because there's times that there's too much stimulation, or if I just need a moment and there's chaos around me, I'm like, all right, let me just like breathe for a second. Let me focus on this one breath. This is something I can control. Take this moment for myself and then resume, get back to wherever we're going. So I definitely resonate with that. And as you were just finding your Zen place, it made me want to start asking this question to people because a lot of my listeners are into astrology. So I think I owe some of those listeners to ask if you know your big three, but what is your at least your sun sign if you know it, as well as what are your big three if you know your big three?
yeah, okay. So it's crazy. Well, you know, everybody after they say their zodiac, they're like, I knew you were that. But
Exactly.
my son, Libra, my moon is in Gemini, and my rising is either in Aries or Pisces. I mean, I feel like I carry both energies, so I'm not big on it. So I'm just like, it's between those. It sounds like I'm big on it though. I gave you all three.
Yeah, I think it's just fun to discuss because you're right. Somebody's listening to this, they're like, "Oh, I knew she was a so and so." Like, it's without fail. Like, I know Kovu sometimes he'll just say like he's some random sign just so somebody can say like, "Oh, I knew it," and he's like, "Oh, I was lying." But
Or like, are you a this? And then like they're like, are you a Libra? And I'm like, yes, I am. What?
I love it. Outside of what we have discussed, what else do people need to know about you to get a complete picture of who you are? Whether it's things you like to do for fun, things you hate, guilty pleasures. What are some kind of tidbits to get to know more of a complete picture of who you are?
um, wow. The complete picture.
As
Um,
complete as you want to give on a podcast,
yeah.
of course.
I mean, I feel like, you know, we can never really give a complete picture, but I mean, I'm not perfect. My life is not how I want it to be right now. However, I am maintaining and moving through as best as I can. I've made the sacrifice to ditch 9 to 5 unless I really need to and commit to entrepreneurship because I want to be sober and I want to be able to do stuff for myself and build a community who is self sustainable without all this shit and the structures and these systems that are like failing us daily. Um, I'm big on family. I'm in this like as a mom now. Uh, a lot of things I've had to remove and get rid of, and not. I mean, already kind of like leaving those things behind, but now it's really like, all right, I gotta. This is not something that is going to help me or my family progress. So I'm really big on family, and progression of family, and like establishing family unit, but also establishing community of families as well. Um, and I'm goofy and but also at the same time, I am serious about like supporting people, and supporting myself. And yeah, that's a little bit about me. I feel like I went on a little tangent, but those are
Oh
I
no.
can find. So
Hey, this is the space for tangents. And it was a good segue, actually, to talk about where people can find you and how they can support you. So, you've already mentioned where people can find you, but just to plug in one more time. And when you talk about how people can support you, if you can, try your best to also give our audience ways that they can support you that might not cost money.
yeah, okay. You can find me again. Instagram is Monét Nyree, MonetNyree, or MonetNyree.com. Ways that you can support me is by like you can comment on whatever you see that you feeling. Let me know what you think about it. Ask me questions about my work. You can barter with me. So if you have something you offer and you need something from me, we can always barter it. You can stream my song. I have a song on all platforms. It's called Iridescent and Blue. You can bump that, share it. Um, yeah, those would be some organic ways. If you have a concept you want to create, just for fun, you can reach out and maybe we can create something. So yeah.
So make sure y'all tap in MonetNyree.com. And I love, love, love the concept of being able to barter with you because we're all trying to eat out here and just ways that we can support each other that are impactful to helping you grow your product or what you're trying to do and also affirming just the work that you've done because I love like exchanging books with people like, hey, I have a book, you have a book, you're trying to exchange books, let me plug your Instagram page. Like just ways that we can organically support people. And I think that was also one of the motivating factors to starting a podcast because I was like, yeah, I can't support everybody the way that I would want to, but I can at least help amplify some of those stories. So definitely tap in with Monet. Next up is Shameless Plug Corner. So any shameless plugs, things you have coming out, coming up, any shout outs you want to have on the podcast, as well as anything you want to manifest on the podcast.
Um, Great things are headed in my direction and your direction, and whoever's listening to direction. Boom. So that's something. And shout out to my partner, GJ the God. He will be on the podcast coming in next week. So I hope
Yep.
y'all enjoy that. I hope he knows he's appreciated. Much love to my family. And yeah, tap in with me. I really am excited about my growth as an artist and an entrepreneur. And just like I feel like transitions are coming, just like for everybody. Ain't nothing permanent but change. So I'm excited to just be on that journey.
Amazing. And then next up, takeaways from this episode. And when you give your takeaways, what are you taking away from this episode, as well as what do you hope listeners are taking away with them as they finish this episode?
I mean, I hope anybody listening recognizes like if you have like a fear of like coming and just speaking about yourself, like to just the importance of just being, even if that it means coming up nervous and speaking with your voice shaking, do it. So that's one thing I want to share just because not that I was nervous, but how easy it feels to speak. I want to let folks know usually things are easier once you start doing it or after the motivation comes after. So that's something I want to say. And if you are a creator and you are just getting out the mud and maybe like things aren't looking up, I want to say like keep going. What is your redefining your definition of like why you do what you do outside of like capitalism and like making money and trying to maintain a certain like aesthetic or look or just like revamping your why. And lastly, yeah, have gratitude. Have gratitude and keep it pushing. Always strive to be better.
Always striving to be better. I think my takeaway from this episode is that we need to recognize how beautiful the collages we are in ourselves, in our own lives. I think that we are all collages of everything that we've been through, everything we aspire to become. All those are parts of who make us who we are as people, whether we see them as flaws, whether we see them as strengths, weaknesses, areas of improvement. I think that I challenge our listeners and I'm challenging myself to just be able to affirm the collage part of you, like whatever makes you who you are, the things you love, the things you're still learning to love, the things that you've grown out of, the things that you've grown into. Like it's just all a part of who we are. And to continue the collage analogy and just what you talked about when it comes to creating the collages, there's certain parts that you're going to have to decide whether you're going to glue down today or if you're going to wait to glue them down until you slip something else behind them. So just making collaging more a part of our daily lives.
Torn off. Okay. Hey.
Hey, that part. Sometimes you got to tear the stuff up for the collage. Sometimes you got to make a clean cut, but it's all part of the bigger picture of the collage. And so, yeah, I just know I'm going to write some type of poem about collaging either today, tomorrow. It's going to be sometime this week. So if y'all see me perform a collage poem on Friday, know it came from this episode. But the second to last formal question before the surprise question of the podcast, recommendations for any books, podcasts, movies, or songs, just anything that you want our listeners to tap in with, whether it will give them more of an idea of who you are or your taste, or just something that you're like, hey, everybody needs to see this movie, like whatever it might be as a recommendation.
Yeah, things popped into my mind. As far as books go, Octavia Butler Parable of the Sower is a really cool science fiction book that is like, I don't know, it's very impactful to me as far as like survival and that like science fiction aspect of things. It's a really like I don't want to say deep. I don't want to be cliche and say deep, but it's like science fiction. So there's that cool aspect within it's like reality where it's like, all right, there's some real shit happening in this book.
Yeah,
And then
thought provoking for sure.
Afrofuturism. So I like that book a lot. And then movies, I don't know why. Oh, I think because I seen this reel of the Truman Show. I think that's like a great movie because it kind of
It
reminds
is.
we're in this system that's kind of like intentional and very structured and um systematic. So that's like a movie I would probably plug just because it randomly came to my head. Again, plugging things that are like flowing out. And then music. I'm always recommending people try to find artists around them. So a couple artists I can name myself, DJ the God. I know there is Nebula Wade, that's an artist from San Diego. Kofa is artist from San Diego. Those are artists I know. Just a couple to name a few coming to mind. So tap in with your local artist. And yeah.
Awesome. Brilliant suggestions. I actually just watched The Truman Show for the first time earlier this year, and fantastic movie. Definitely, if y'all haven't seen The Truman Show before, tap in with that. And then, Monet, the last question of the podcast, I do this with every parent that's on the podcast. Your daughter is listening to this podcast 10 years from now, maybe 15. I don't know how soon she's going to be tapping into podcasts. But what is your message for her as she gets to the tail end of her mom's episode? What message do you want to leave for your daughter?
Mm, I love you. Uh, You hold power in the actions and choices that you make on a daily basis. Do not beat yourself up if you do not master this in a short period of time, as I am also still learning to master it myself. Um, and always know that you are loved.
Love it. What a very wholesome way to close out the podcast. Monet, you've been very generous with your time and your story. So definitely want to thank you again for coming on to the banquet hall. Listeners, thank y'all for listening in. Make sure y'all tap in with the podcast at Banquet Hall Pod on socials. Head on over to thefourthkyler.com to check out another episode. If y'all came here just for Monet, make sure y'all stay for at least one or two other dope artists that are on this platform. As Monet mentioned, GJ is going to be on the pod for next week's episode. Y'all can tap in with the Banquet Hall pod merch. But of course, make sure y'all tap into Monet for all your graphic design needs, your photo needs. And I'll turn it over to you, Monet. Any last words to close us out before we close off the recording?
Sending y'all endurance. Even if things is tough, maintain momentum. And yeah, maintain integrity. That's about it.
Maintain integrity. Listeners, hope you go out there and make you a beautiful collage out of the rest of your day. And thank y'all for tuning into the Banquet Hall podcast. We'll catch y'all next time.
Thank you, Kyler. Have a great day, y'all.